Nothing screams main character more than spiky hair, being absurdly strong for no reason, and having a missing father figure. So in this video that I want to watch with you, apparently it's going to show us how Nanami is actually Yuji's father. So let's take a look.
Nanami is the dad that Itadori never had.
We'll see.
I think out of all the complex and tragic characters we've met in Jujutsu Kaisen so far, Nanami Kento is without any doubt the most complete character. He just has stuff figured out. Listening to Nanami is like listening to your parents or friends when you don't want to admit that they have a point, but they really do. And so, interestingly enough, in a world full of eccentric, powerful, and badass characters, it's the ordinary, typical grown-up in the room that is so relatable and, quite rightfully, enjoys popularity that rivals that of Gojo.
そういう小さな絶望の積み重ねが人を大人にするの。
Okay, so Gojo might be the strongest sorcerer, but in my opinion, he's a little OP. But Nanami, on the other hand, I mean, he can multitask like no one else. I mean, this dude could be asking you about how your day is going, talk to you about how crappy the weather is, while at the same time kicking some curse butt. You know what I mean? On top of that, not only is he extremely tactical and super responsible, he is also the only guy who can make a suit and tie look like body armor. I mean, look at this. Crazy. And I do think that he has a point here. Nanami is a more relatable character than a lot of the characters that we see in this anime because he really does wrestle with his responsibility, taking on this whole Jujutsu sorcerer thing, while at the same time having the opportunity to just live a regular life.
While on the surface, Nanami might not appear to be the most creative or even complex character, you only need to go a little bit deeper to find that in Akutami's net of carefully crafted characters, he is one of the most multi-layered and well thought out personalities in the story. This becomes very clear when looking at his two main functions in the story, being a father figure to Itadori and drawing you, dear viewer, deeper into the story itself. So let's start with the latter. To understand what makes Nanami so important in terms of world building, I want to give you a quick overview of the world in Jujutsu Kaisen. More so than any other recent anime, the central principle in Jujutsu Kaisen's design is to integrate a supernatural world of curses and sorcerers into a real and timely depiction of our normal world.
Nanami's character is so complex and well developed to the point where he has you thinking about life, right? He has you thinking about the universe, has you thinking about your 401k and if you're set up for the future. And above all, he has us all thinking about how a paddle can be used for more than just spanking.
I see what you did there.
In all seriousness, in a world where almost every power has 3 or 4 different levels of details to it, and most characters' background stories are more complex than JoJo's family tree, Nanami's simplicity is just refreshing. I mean, this is a dude who really doesn't want to be a sorcerer, but the prospect of a 9-to-5 terrifies him even more. Right? Because let's face it, I mean, fighting curses is probably less soul-crushing than office politics and having to send emails every day. But overall, I think Nanami just adds a different perspective to the entire world, right? Where we see a bunch of complexities. We have a man that is very simple. We have a lot of chaos. Well, this man is very straight edge and to the point. And I think that it really adds to the balance of the Jujutsu world.
This results in Nanami going out of his way to cooperate with Gojo, despite the disrespect he has for him and his methods of handling things.
私はこの人を信用しているし信頼している。でも尊敬はしてません。
And this difference is reflected pretty much perfectly in their approach to teaching. While Gojo is great at bringing Yuji up to speed in terms of power, basically crash coursing him into being a first-class sorcerer in mere weeks, due to his own character flaw, he can teach Itadori on an emotional and human level. This is where Nanami comes in. While he doesn't make Yuji any stronger in terms of power, he teaches him about morality, duty, and in general, what it means to be part of the Jujutsu world. He also allows Yuji, who reminds him of his own time as a student, to be a kid, which, even though it might annoy him at first, is incredibly important for dealing with the struggles that come with being a teenager who suddenly has to make complex moral decisions, like taking a human life, and who's also way too reckless with his own life. And so instead of throwing Itadori into the fire like Gojo likes to do, he gives Itadori the option to say no. Nanami is a sort of parental figure for Itadori that, while strict, gives him a sense of security and guidance. And most importantly, he gives Yuji a feeling of achievement and attention by believing in him and his abilities.
Nanami's role as a guide and protector reminds me of Psalms 23:4, where it describes God's guidance, right? This verse says, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me." And I really do think that Nanami, to an extent, does add a different element to Yuji's upbringing, right? I think that he helps Yuji with more of the philosophical things that he has to encounter as a Jujutsu sorcerer, right? These decisions that are not normally black or white. And I do think that, to an extent, Jojo being so overpowered, maybe he hasn't really had to deal with the same type of struggles than somebody that's a little bit more limited, if that makes sense. And I think that Nanami at this point, we don't know in the future, but at least at this point, he is closer to Yuji's level than Jojo is at this time. So I think that there's also this proximity between the two, where it allows him to be, as this video says, more of a father figure to Yuji. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. And as always, just want to remind you that we must persevere. Peace.